Welcome to my podcast, Loving Courageous. I'm the host, Demetris, and today I'll be speaking about artificial womb. Scientists have been working on a research to develop systems that mimic the human uterus and to make the idea of human ectogenesis, which means growing a baby in an artificial environmental outside of the human body. The goal here is to provide care for extremely preterm babies that cannot be treated in traditional incubators because of their organs, such as their lungs, because it's not fully developed. Now, scientists that are working on this research argue that possibility remains theoretical, and the work could yield important clues to early human development. One of the most important moments in a human embryo's journey to becoming a baby is when the microscopic ball of cells burrows into the womb. But the pivotal step of embryonic implantation has long been mysterious because it unfolds hidden inside the body. A molecular biologist at the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, whose name is John Wu, who's involved in the research, said human implantation is essentially a black box, a mystery. Implantation happens very early on during pregnancy. Essentially, we don't know when, we don't know where. It's happening in a womb we cannot have access to. And scientists wants to know what makes a healthy pregnancy. And so they decided to do insights into the causes of a miscarriage. In a new research, John Wu and his colleagues in China obtained cells and tissue collected from the lining of wombs during routine medical procedures and figured out how to recreate a key part of the lining of the womb inside tiny plastic devices in their labs. He calls it a womb on a chip. The scientists placed human embryos donated for research after infertility treatments, as well as primitive embryo-like entities created from stem cells called embryoids inside their tiny wombs on chips and peered through a microscope to watch what happens. Now, John Wu made a statement and said, "For the first time, we observed the entire sequence of human implantation. The researchers have already used their wombs on chips to discover clues about how embryos and wombs interact, which can help us understand the implantation process at the molecular level." Researchers also compare artificial wombs using cells from healthy wombs with artificial wombs using cells from wombs of women who had miscarriages. John Wu made a statement and said, "We observed implantation failure right in front of our own eyes." His team even screened more than 1,100 drugs to see if any might prevent miscarriages and identified some that looked promising. Now, there's a slippery slope when it comes to ethics. There were ethical issues raised by the research about questions destroying human embryos for research. Dr. Daniel Somasi, a Georgetown University bioethicist, said, "For those of us who believe that humans are humans and deserving of ethical respect, whether embryonic, adolescent, or elderly, these experiments are unethical." The experiments raise questions about using these devices to study human embryos past 14 days of development, which is considered off limits in many places. There are also concerns about implanting even primitive embryo models created from stem cells into anything that resembles a human womb. Some might be concerned with how far this might go. It's research that could facilitate future attempts to support not only research on early embryos, but on growing embryos for significant periods of time in labs, perhaps eventually to the point of fetuses. If that ever became possible, it raises the prospect of producing human fetuses for spare parts. There are some cons when it comes to the artificial womb. One is physiological divergence, lack of fluid submersion, different oxygen and nutrient delivery, and absence of natural labor. Placental hormones can alter fetal development. Unknown long-term outcomes. The full psychological and developmental effects on babies grown in these systems are not understood yet. Maternal-fetal bonding. The absence of the physical pregnancy experience raises questions about the emotional connection and bonding between the parent and the child. Also, artificial womb can change the birth experience, redefines what giving birth means, impacting family narratives and traditions. Devaluation of pregnancy. This may shift views on gestation, potentially increasing pressure on women to avoid pregnancy to maintain careers or even influence abortion debates. Access and equity. High costs could make it a luxury, worsening disparities for vulnerable populations who need it most, like the ones who are facing preterm birth. Also, consent and autonomy. Issues arise regarding fully informed parental consent and the potential for employers or society to pressure women to use them. Now, there are some pros to this besides saving a preterm baby. One of them is infertility solutions. Offer biological parenthood for infertile couples or those unable to carry a pregnancy. Also, for transgender and same-sex couples, enables transgender women and gay male couples to have biological children without surrogacy. Free women from pregnancy risks. Allow women to avoid health risks such as hypertension and infections, and career impacts such as discrimination and lost opportunities associated with pregnancy and promoting gender equity. Now, me personally, I don't fully agree with the artificial womb because one, the baby needs to be in the woman. That's how I personally feel because the woman is the one that's going to give the baby the nutrients and everything that the unborn baby needs. And this is one thing where I just draw the line that when science tries to play certain parts that it really should not. But we'll see how this turns out in the next couple of years. Now I'm going to get into the Black History Fact. The Black History Fact today will be about Thomas Stewart, the black man that invented the mop. In 1893, Thomas Stewart invented a mop head that could be screwed on and off so that when the mop was dirty or worn out, it could be cleaned or replaced. He also created a T-head that attached to the head of the mop that wrung water when pulled by a lever, both designs that are incorporated in mops today. That is all for today. Thank you everyone for listening to my podcast. Happy New Year's, and I hope everybody have a lovely day.